Thank you very much. Salam alaikum. My name is Rosie. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me. Although I work for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office for the UK government, I'm lucky enough to have also worked in civil society for a long time and used to lobby my own government on doing more on women, peace and security. So the tables have turned now that I'm responsible for delivering that. So I just wanted to share some of the lessons learned from the UK in the work that we do on women, peace and security. The UK is the pen holder on Security Council Resolution 1325. And we value that and think it's very important and want to demonstrate global leadership on this agenda. But I think, as Jackie said, no one's hit the perfect moment yet on this, so we're still aspiring to that. We were the first permanent member of the Security Council to have a national action plan in 2006, and we launched our fourth national action plan just over a year ago in January 2018. Our National Action Plan is jointly owned by the Foreign Office, the Department for International Development and our Ministry of Defence, and we get technical support from our Stabilisation Unit. Jackie mentioned political will. That is really important in us being able to deliver on this agenda, not just have a nice piece of paper that sits on a shelf. We are lucky to have senior ministerial and senior official support for this agenda. For example, one of the ministers I work closely with, Lord Ahmed, he absolutely champions these issues. Thank you. Is that better? I won't start from the beginning. So I was just talking about political will and the importance of having that ministerial leadership as well as having senior officials champion women, peace and security. I'm very lucky to have a minister in the Foreign Office who absolutely champions this and always wants to know what's the women, peace and security angle to the work that he does. We have the Defence Secretary, who's absolutely committed to progressing this agenda, particularly from an armed forces perspective, which I'll return to. The Foreign Office appointed its first ever special envoy for gender equality in 2017, and Joanna Roper champions this issue in all the work that she does, both domestically and internationally. And again, in the Ministry of Defence, we have a senior gender champion. Our Vice Chief of Defence Staff, General Messenger, leads the work internally. So our National Action Plan very much follows the 4 pillars of 1325, but in our latest National Action Plan, we've translated this into 7 strategic outcomes that make more sense to us in terms of where the UK can add value to this agenda. All 3 departments are responsible for delivering those strategic outcomes, but it is obvious that in some of those strategic outcomes should be led by one department with the others supporting them. We have 9 focus countries in our National Action Plan. They're Afghanistan, Burma, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Iraq, Libya, Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, and Syria. But just because we have 9 countries doesn't mean that women, peace and security and our NAP shouldn't be applied everywhere. It absolutely should. And the UK support for the JONAP here is a great example of how we are supporting this agenda in other countries, even if they're not necessarily a focus country. Our NAP is outward facing and doesn't touch on the domestic part of the women, peace and security agenda. We do make linkages to national domestic sort of legislation, strategies and policies, and we just don't want to replicate what already exists. For example, our Home Office has a national strategy on tackling violence against women and girls. I think in terms of funding, which was a point that a number of people have raised, the UK doesn't ring-fence funding for women, peace and security, but that's because we don't want it to constrain our ability to deliver on this agenda. If we ring-fence money, there's a risk that we won't be able to spend more than that on this, and we want to keep our options open. Civil society is absolutely key in in terms of being a critical partner for the UK on this agenda, we work very closely with the Gender Action for Peace and Security network of UK-based NGOs working on this issue. We consult with them regularly, as we do with civil society in our 9 focus countries. In terms of, for one example, in terms of developing the current National Action Plan, we consulted heavily with civil society in the UK and overseas to help us write the National Action Plan. They're also really important in terms of implementing the National Action Plan. We can't do it on our own. We simply don't have enough resources to do it all on our own. But also, they're very much a critical friend, and in terms of monitoring, evaluation and learning, they're there to remind us that we need to be doing more all the time, or help us think about how to do it differently and better, including through producing a shadow report to our Parliament on our progress on implementation every year. Just very briefly, I wanted to flag that one of our 7 strategic outcomes is on national capacity building. The UK knows that there's still much more that we need to learn on this agenda on how to do it better. And so an important part of our NAP is making sure that we are building our own capacity to deliver more on it. So I wanted to just highlight a number of things that the Ministry of Defence has been taking forward over the past year or so. Just 3 weeks ago, the Ministry of Defence launched a new joint services publication, 1325, which is on human security and includes women, peace and security. This is the first time the Ministry of Defence has had a policy that clearly talks about women, peace and security and gives guidance on how to implement it across the 3 armed forces. They also started a military gender and protection advisors course at our Defence Academy last year, and will be running another 2 courses in 2019. Although many of the participants are UK military personnel, it is open to internationals as well. So I think if there's an interest from Jordan and other countries in the region, I would encourage you to contact my colleagues at the Ministry of Defence about those courses. We are also chairing the Women, Peace and Security Chiefs of Defence Network. That's really important from my view in terms of senior military leadership championing this issue and pushing it downwards inside institutions. I think without that it's very difficult to make the change that we actually need to see. And the Ministry of Defence has established a working group with civil society, again underscoring how important that relationship is. But I think going back to kind of where I started, I would say that, we know that there's still much more that the UK needs to do to get better on this agenda. We're always looking at the lessons that we're learning. We want to share those with others, but we also want to hear and learn from others too. We're very conscious that the 20th anniversary of 1325 is in October 2020. We want that to be a real moment, not to keep talking about the issue, but to really have impact on the ground. So we need to be working with all of you and all our international partners to really make a difference on this agenda. Thank you.